The time is now.
They gon' love me for my ambition. Easy to dream a dream, but what's harder than
Kick
living?
it.
Yeah, dude. Let's kick it. Let's kick it. What is this? Episode 5?
Episode 5, man. That's
Episode
crazy.
5, man.
Crazy.
You know, it's going by quicker than I expected.
Yeah.
Like each week rolls around, I'm like, dang, already number 5, which it kind of feels like 6 because then we had the introduction video too.
Yep.
So it's all good though, man. Cool. Right on. So purpose and passion.
Yeah. Let's get it.
Let's see. Episode 6, purpose and passion. Oh wait, 5. I said 5. 5?
5.
Oh yeah.
What's up, y'all? Oh man, Ambitious Mindz, we're back. Episode 5 for you. Oh man, I hope you guys enjoyed the last one we did, Leadership 101. I hope you guys really enjoyed that one. And man, what about Pastor Travis, B? We had Pastor Travis 2 weeks in a row, man. That was some fire content, man.
No, it really was. He's always great, man. I feel like every time I either talk to him or see him, like it's always just so good.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, and I know we're working on. We got the next one here coming up here soon too. Next guest speaker here coming soon. Yeah, dude, it'll be good. Getting this lineup going.
Yeah, bro. Well, how's your week been, man? I mean, you went out of town for a little bit, got a chance to just refresh, and
dude.
Sound like you're selling some houses.
Trying, always. No, it's been good, man. It's been. I know we kind of talked about this before, but it tends to like come in spurts, like a roller coaster, you know. So, right now things are good though. Things are good. Just had an accepted offer tonight, which is great. Nice. So that puts me at 6 under contract right now, which is awesome, man. So seriously, so grateful, so blessed. Like now it's just keeping these together and keeping it rolling. And it's funny because kind of like what you do this month is what you're how do you say it? Like what you do this month is affecting your next month.
Yep.
So when you put something under contract, it normally takes between 30 to like 45 days before it closes. So I mean you're working for this month for the next month's paycheck type of thing. So
for sure.
It's good though, man.
Good,
it's man. Good. What about you?
Man, it's been busy. Bro, I've been working my tail off, man. It's been busy, man. I mean, I hope everybody out there is staying safe and, COVID safe and, just taking care of your body, man. And it's just crazy, man. Just so many people dealing with health issues right now. So been doing a lot of covering. I think today was like the first day it really hit me where I'm like, man, I'm a little tired. Mm-hmm. Like I was in the middle of making some smoothies, man. It just hit me. And I was like, oh man, shoot.
Man. You guys you have coffee ones though, right? You have coffee smoothies, like
bro.
Put some
caffeine. I had one today. I had a try to keep it low calorie today. I did the Slim and Trim chocolate, add some cold brew coffee to it, man.
Okay.
So
yep. I'd be over there just dogging it, just keep pouring the coffee.
Exactly.
Keep going.
But yeah, bro, other than that, man, like you said, man, blessed to be alive and just super duper thankful that, I haven't gotten sick, the family hasn't gotten sick. So, always trying to see the silver lining, man. And it's been good. Man. So can't complain.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know whenever we talk about that, it's so crazy just because, you deal with that so much more than I do with just a difference in the industries and you working with the public constantly, man. Like I feel for you guys for real.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna make it though,
That's right. That's right. Always.
But yeah, so guys, tonight we're gonna dive in a little bit more into passion and purpose. So Pastor Travis had, like I said, some fire content that he shared, and we want to kind of go over some of that stuff, but then also just talk about a little bit how we found our passions and what we believe our purpose to be. So super excited about that, man. And B, I guess let's start off, man. Let's do some takeaways from Pastor Travis, man. I know we got a bunch, and there's so many, man. But let's start off with some takeaways just from that. What was maybe like the top 2 or 3 things you had, bro?
Man, oh, let's see. There was so much, man. There really was. There was so much. I remember when we finished, I had like a whole page of notes just myself. Now I gotta find it. But oh, dude, it was great. I'd say, the biggest thing that I just continue to think about though is just the limiting beliefs. And trying to be more self-aware of, what limiting beliefs do I have in my life? Am I aware of them? If not, like, am I searching for, just really starting to sit there and reflect on all these things. It was great though, because I mean, it forces you to be intentional about that type of stuff. And there's so many different topics that we covered. I'd say the limiting beliefs was definitely a big one. Man,
what about I know this was a big one for you. You mentioned it when we were actually having a conversation with Pastor Travis, but it takes more faith to rest than to work.
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. That stuck with me. That stuck with me.
I'm like, Jesus, hold it together now. I'm gonna go ahead and take an hour break here. Go ahead and hold it together for brother.
Right, exactly. No, I think, honestly, when I hear that too, I think of you for sure, because I know how you are, man. I know how much of a workhorse that you are, and like you'll be the one out there grinding it out always, and to be able to say like it takes more faith to rest.
Yep.
And know, that it's gonna be all right. And like I can relate, yeah, definitely can relate. But oh man, it's deep. It's good. What about you?
I think just to take it back from the start, because we started off by asking them, is passion and purpose the same thing? How do they correlate? And he mentioned, the equation for purpose was passion plus gifts equals purpose, right? And I think another way to say gifts, because I know a lot of people, when you hear gifts, right, unless you're kind of from the spiritual realm, like you've heard of spiritual gifts, things like that. But I guess another way to break it down is just, gifts is just things that you're naturally good at, right? Ways that you add value. And that's key, man, because I don't think a lot of people realize the ways that they add value or what their gifts really are. I think it's just things that they're like, well, yeah, you just do this spreadsheet, you just do it like this. And it's like, your gift might be to be an administrator.
Right.
Like if you like organizing stuff and stuff like that, like you might be somebody that, say it should be, I don't want necessarily, people get offended when you say secretary. I'm not saying you necessarily have to be a secretary, but somebody that organizes things or help businesses organize things or put spreadsheets together, man, like that's gold. I mean, we would pay for somebody like that in a heartbeat. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Somebody can do my numbers tonight.
Right.
That's the last thing I'm thinking about.
Oh man.
So, yeah, man.
That's kind of like what we talked about in the last episode too. Just the what we talked about, the EQ versus IQ.
Yeah.
Finding somebody that's passionate and is good about those things that you don't want to do, like, and that's perfect. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, man. But no, man, like I said, I think that was, one of the key ones. And then the rest one, man, like, and creating boundaries, you know what I'm saying, for yourself, because it's super hard, man. Like, I say this because, once again, you could be in your purpose and still be working for someone. Right. Now, I happen to be working for someone right now, but my goal is to have my own. Right. But, the reason why I think that's important, because I think if people think that the only way that you're in your purpose is if you have your own business, right? Or it's, just yours, right? Who's going to work for you? Somebody purpose got to be working for you.
Exactly.
If not, you're doing everything by yourself, right? Everybody's not called to necessarily own something, right? But everybody does have a purpose. And I think, he made that very clear that everybody has a purpose. Right. And that comes from Acts 2 verses 10. It talks about we all were created for a purpose. Right. And it was well before we were even born. Right. And so every single person has a purpose. Right. And like I said, man, I think We have to get out of that mindset, because I think this is the other thing. And I used to talk to some of my mentees about this. Working for somebody, he talked about the law of exposure, right?
Mhm.
And exposing yourself to things. Sometimes you can't get exposed to things on your own.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you're trying to grind it out and you're trying to make every dollar count, right? It's hard to be exposed to certain things. But when you happen to work for someone, right? Just like, me and you work for Planet Fitness, right? We got introduced to certain people that we were never met. We've been in
Exactly.
certain situations, certain rooms, talking to certain people that we would have never got an opportunity to sit down with. You know what I'm saying? Sitting down with millionaires, talking about, business plans and ideas. You don't get that just always on your own.
No.
And so I think, even if you leverage it, right, very similar to how me and you have done in the past, I think you leverage those things and see what things you can get exposed to.
Right. Yeah, dude, I think, I think it's even deeper than, just understanding that where you're at is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Mm.
And there's so much peace in that when you truly feel that, when you truly believe that. And this isn't necessarily where I want to be, but this is where I am, and this is where I'm supposed to be, because it's going to be serving me in whatever, area of my life that I'm supposed to be in right now. And I think back to our time at Planet, there were so many days, man, where I was like, what am I doing here?
Yep.
And I was like, I'd be in there cleaning a bathroom, bro, and I'd be like, dude, like, what am I doing here? But what I didn't see is, in hindsight, the work ethic that I developed from being there, the people that you run into while you're doing those things, and you build those relationships that I would still reach out to this day, and it's like, that's why you were there. That was the purpose. It's so much deeper than just that surface task that you're doing.
Yep. No, man, most definitely, man. Well, let's kind of kick it, man. And, I'm pretty sure some of the other things from Pastor Travis's will still come up, but let's talk about, how did you find your passion? Like, how did you okay, photography, that's my thing. Real estate, that's my thing. How did you fall into that? What do you believe your purpose to be?
Man, for me, it was gradual. There wasn't that moment where I was like, light bulb, like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to, it's gradual, man. So it comes from being uncomfortable first, in my opinion, and from my experience. It comes from being uncomfortable. We'll start with Planet. When I first started at Planet and being in the customer service industry, and having to give tours and introduction to like sales things, and all these different things that I just wasn't familiar with yet, I used to be so anxious. I was so freaked out, man. Like, I kid you not, like, don't tell nobody, but I would say like the first 6 months, like anytime I had to give a tour, sweat. Dude, I would be so, I'd be like, nah, I don't want to do this. Like, it was terrible, but I knew that I had to, because I knew it wasn't just Planet Fitness that I was doing this for. I knew that I needed to do this because it's going to help me grow and develop in so many different areas that I'm going to need for what I want to do.
You also need a paycheck.
I also need a paycheck. I also had rent due the next week. So, but no, man, for real, like I knew that sales, I knew that conversation, social skills, being able to present yourself well and speak fluently, over these things. These are things I needed to know how to do, like not just for Planet, but for life. So continue to be uncomfortable, and then you start to kind of ease into it. But then I feel like you start to get some takeaways, and you start to feel like, wow, this feeling of fulfillment, especially when you're building these relationships. I'll tell you right now, man, one of the biggest moments for me in that industry was having a member come through, and just, he was an overweight gentleman. He came in, showed him around, gave him a tour. You could tell he did not want to be there at all. He was freaking out, but we had good conversation, kind of got to know his situation a little bit. And he told me, he's like, I'm here because my doctor told me I had to be. He's like, I got I think it was like 2 or 3-year-old son at home. And he's like, man, I can't even get up and play with him right now because I can't physically. And he's like, so I need this. I need to be here. And, he'd check in. I made sure when he checked in, I remembered his name. Small talk at the front desk or whatever. And I remember a few months went by and he came up to me and he said, he's like, Brad, he's like, I just want to let you know that yesterday I went outside and played baseball with my son for the first time. And I'm like, man, like if that doesn't like, oh man, like it still does to this day. Like so you start to look at things so much differently. It gives you a different perspective. You start to feel something that you're like, ooh, like I want this feeling. I think that's what's important is when you get that feeling, and I don't necessarily know how to describe it, but I know everybody knows what I'm talking about. Is when you get that feeling and you're like, yep, this is right. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Hold on to that, man, and be aware of what are you doing every time you get that feeling and you have those moments, because that's exactly where you're supposed to be. And that's exactly the type of thing that you're supposed to be doing. So I know serving people, adding value, building that relationship, I enjoyed that. Like in being able to watch that progression. So I get that same fulfillment from photography. I get that same fulfillment from real estate. Photography, I'm meeting people, I'm building relationships with clients, seeing them smile at their own photos and making them feel like beautiful about themselves. Like, man, that's an awesome feeling. Real estate, working with clients, building that relationship, helping them with one of the largest purchases of most people's lives. Like, it's a stressful time.
Yeah.
And being able to see them from start to finish and being at that closing table and handing them the keys to their new house, man, like it's that same feeling, and you start to learn their stories along the way too. But I think your purpose is broader, and then you find things in industries in different avenues that then kind of serve that purpose of yours. So that's how it went for me, at least. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but
yeah, man. No, that's good stuff.
hey,
Good stuff.
hey,
Do you ever do? I mean, when you sell like your first house, right? You know what I'm saying? It's official, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to be like Ty from Extreme Home Makeover and be like, "Welcome to your new home"?
I haven't gotten that down yet, man. I haven't gotten that down. Like
Or you got to be like, "Move that bus" or BMW.
Move that bus.
Move your BMW. Just have somebody driving slowly past.
Right, man. No, dude. Hey, what was it? The first one that I closed on, because I've closed on 4 now.
Okay.
And the first one I closed on, we forgot the sign out in their yard. So after they bought the house, I had to go back out there and get the sign. I could have maybe done something then. I should have had like some confetti poppers or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I feel like you did an air horn, like.
Yeah, man. No, we do like closing gifts though. So at closing, like just for working with each other, it's like a congratulations and welcome to your new home. We'll do some kind of like a closing gift for that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man. No, man. I honestly, I think mine was very similar to yours. How I kind of figured out my passions. See these sensor lights. Okay, well, you can still see me. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it alone. The rest of the lights won't shut off. But, yeah, man. I think the hardest part for me though, figuring out my passions, and more so, I say figuring out my purpose, because I think I've always had passions. Right, growing up, it was soccer. Man, I loved soccer. Thought I wanted to be a professional soccer player until I started gaining weight, and then that kind of went down here. But I love sports, still love soccer to this day. Cooking was one of those things where I'm big on bringing people together, right? And you don't think about it in the initial stage. You're like, okay, cool. I just like cooking, and I know how to cook, but it was the bringing people together, and that's kind of where the ET's catering thing came from. It was, like you said, just with people smiling at their pictures, right? To see somebody get a plate of food, right? And they get excited, kind of just like how me and you, when we went to Big John's for the first time in Owasso, right?
Boy.
You know what I'm saying? It just put a smile on your face, right? And so, man, it was really about that. But I'll be honest, I had a huge struggle point, and it wasn't until I got to Planet that I kind of learned more about me and my purpose, because I struggled with the IQ piece. The IQ piece was harder for me. And it was harder for me more so because, let's be honest, I didn't really care that much about the IQ part.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds cool when you're in board meetings and boardrooms and you're hearing all these acronyms, like my favorite EBITDA.
Oh, man, don't even get me started.
EBITDA and EBITDA.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're hearing all this lingo, right? And you're hearing the people be able to go back and forth, and you feel out of place, right? And then the struggle I had was, it wasn't probably until probably like 2 or 3 years in the planet where, our regional at the time, she sat down with me and she was like, look, like, you have to realize, like, you do add value, right? Your value just looks different. And I think that might have been like my light bulb moment, because then I realized, okay, connecting with people, I can do that better than a lot of people that I know. Right? I know I can walk into a room and I can connect with just about anybody, right? And sometimes it is uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong. I'm one of those extroverts that know how to be an extrovert, but when I'm at home, I'm an introvert.
No, y'all, check this out. This dude can walk in any room. And I watched him walk into a room with majority strangers, mind you. He's presenting on some stuff for the company. And by the end of it, he's dapping up all these people, like, as they're leaving, like he's known them forever. And I'm like eavesdropping, listening into their conversation. And Eris is like asking about their grandmother and stuff. Like, I'm like, how does this dude get that deep on that level that quick? He's gifted.
But it's hard though, because I didn't see that as a value.
Oh man.
Right? I didn't see that as a value. And I remember having a conversation with my wife maybe about a year ago, when I was just like, I struggle because, I'll put it this way. It's been cool because I haven't had to apply for a job in a long time. Okay. It's really cool. And, I'm very blessed and fortunate in that way. But I think I've always struggled with, if I ever wanted to apply for somewhere, right, I wouldn't know how to do my resume, right? Because I think a lot of times there's certain things that we're gifted at and that we add value in, because we overlook it and we don't see it as something that a company may need. We just know that we're good at it, right? We don't know how to word that. And so I challenge myself now, and I even challenge some of my managers now. I said, I got a chance to train a manager maybe a couple months ago, and she was able to instantly connect with the team. The team surrounded her, and they were able to help her during her training and everything. I said, how did you do it? And she was like, what? She was like, I was just being me. I said, okay. So I said, you sound like me. You sound how I used to be. So I was like, the one thing I want you to do is I want you to pay attention. What are the simple things that you do when you go into a room? What's your game plan? Right? Now, I know for me now, when I go into a room, my game plan is, first of all, I'm about to make sure that I speak to everybody. Right. And I got this from one of my big brothers, and Darius, when I used to go visit CMU, he told me, he said, man, introduce yourself to everybody. I don't care if, whatever office it is, introduce yourself to everybody. And now I give everybody that spiel, like anybody that's going to college, I'm like, introduce yourself to everybody. I don't care if you're going to need them one day or whatever the case may be. And man, it was a cool feeling being able to walk on CMU campus, and people that I have nothing to do with, like, they know me, they say, hey, you know what I'm saying? We have a quick conversation, and it's just good to know people, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it took me a while. And then once I fell in love with the leadership aspect of things, man, it was like, oh man, it was an instant connect, right? Because now I'm just like, man, I love adding value to people. I know how to connect with the room. Still, working on how to read all rooms. Because you're gonna run into some rooms sometimes that you'll be able to read some, but can't read them all, right? But being able to read a room and present on some information and be authentically me, which I know we'll kind of jump into that next, but being authentically me and being okay with it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think now I'm okay with I probably been said probably like 15 times already, right? Probably more than that. But the one thing that I'm learning is that's me. Now, will I develop and will I grow in this area? Most definitely. But saying every now and then, that's Eris. That's Eris. Doesn't mean that my content changes, doesn't mean that I can't still connect with people. That's just authentically me.
Right. Absolutely. I love it, man. I mean, everything that you're talking about, I see you live it. I see you live it. You know, it's all true. I do got a question though.
What's
So I'm sure we've probably talked about this in the past, but do you know of anybody, or do you think that you can be successful in something that you're not passionate about? And let's say success is probably determined by like monetary.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll even. I think we're all taught this even before we get to a job. And I'm gonna tell you the main place: school.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's some people that really enjoy school, right? But for the most part, and this is the thing that I struggled with school, struggled with a little bit with college too, was I wasn't passionate about most of those classes. I
Yeah.
wasn't passionate about learning about, certain things in history and certain things like that. I wasn't. Let's just call it what it is. But you learn how to be successful in it because you need to, right? And so I think as you grow up, you realize I need money. And so you start becoming successful in a lot of things that you're not passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You start to learn about different things. And just like I was talking about, like the business lingo and stuff like that, you learn how to talk the business lingo really good,
Yeah.
right? But hate every moment of it.
Yeah.
But then when
Yeah.
that paycheck comes, it's like, oh, okay, I guess it's worth it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
When you got that A in high school, okay, I guess it's worth it. When you got that scholarship, okay, I guess it was worth it. But is it really?
Yeah. That's
You
true.
know, like what is the point? And man, I commend you. I commend, a lot of people. I tell my kids here now at Smoothie King. I said, I don't make this my goal, but sometimes my goal is to make you drop out of college. I said I was able to make a good amount of people at Planet drop out, and they're very successful at what they do. Some people have went back. But I think about the times that, I remember talking to you, I remember talking to, one of our mentees as well, that you didn't know what you really wanted to do,
Yeah.
and you were wasting thousands of dollars, taking student loans out and everything like that. And, the refund checks were nice because you're able to pay some rent, but it's just like, okay, so I'm getting money that I got to pay back later for not knowing what I want to do. Right. Now I will say this. I think without that, you wouldn't be who you are right now. So don't get me wrong. The same thing with me with, having, my undergrad and my master's. It sucks sometimes to think about it because I'm like, man, now I got some debt and I'm not using a lot of the stuff that I learned. But I also realized without that, right, I wouldn't have met my wife. Without that, I wouldn't have met a lot of people. Without that, I wouldn't have gotten into Planet Fitness. At least not the franchise that we got into. I
Right.
wouldn't have met you. Like, there's so many things that wouldn't have happened. I know God always has a plan for all those things.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I think we're taught early on that there's certain things that we need to do to quote unquote be successful, even if you're not passionate about it.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying we have to do this, but what if you were given a choice at the beginning, like, hey, would you like to go to school? Right? Schools will be empty, unfortunately. So I do think, there does need to be some foundation. But like I said, I think we're taught that very early.
I'll tell you what, man, I don't know if we want to go down this road because I think it's a great topic, the school. So to give you guys some context, Eris is decorated. Okay, like he's I bachelor's, master's, and then I dropped out my, well, I guess technically it would have been my junior year
Yeah.
of
It's
university.
Concordia first. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've got two different backgrounds for the schooling aspect, but I'm so glad that you brought that up because when I asked the question, I didn't even think about that, but it's a great example. I think it's systematically put in there to, without going down rabbit holes, it doesn't, we won't go down there, but I think you're right. I think you're taught at a young age to basically fit a mold. And man, I'll never forget, like my senior year English class, we were required to apply to like X amount of universities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's like,
That's the next step.
that's the next step. And that's your only next step. when I was going, I'll be honest with you, I did not care because in my mindset I was like, I'm gonna go play football somewhere, and that's all I know, that's all I care, and whatever else, whatever. Like
Yeah.
it didn't go through. But if I wouldn't have had football, like what? Like that's it? Like university is the only option? Like and I believe it stronger now than I ever did because I mean it wasn't an easy choice for me to drop out either. But it's like there's so many options out there. There's so many, whether it's trades, whatever it may be, but it's about using. I'll tell you right now, I would always encourage somebody to take a gap year, go explore, learn yourself, have experiences, try and find those feelings that we talked about earlier, and really be intentional about what you were doing when you had those, and start to develop some real passions and pursue those,
Yeah.
because I think that's what's going to help lead you to your purpose. I think the pursuit of your passions will help lead to your purpose,
Yeah.
and I think they're connected that way. But yeah, man, school is, mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
man, it's crazy, and I just thought about this. I mean, and maybe we'll have to do this sometime in the future, but I think there needs to be a course. Like I know John Maxwell has been doing huge on um, teaching people values.
hmm
All the way in high school now, right?
yeah,
And that be the beginning, right? And I think they've even gone down to middle schools and elementary schools now, like teaching people good values. But what if there was a class? I know they have what is the thing called? Tech something or whatnot where you can go kind of do some different jobs or whatnot. I know we kind of had it in the high school for a little while. It's not promoted a whole lot, but there is an option.
yeah. We had like a
But
career tech center.
yeah,
Yeah,
most definitely. But what if there was a class that was literally focused on passion and purpose? You get what I mean? Like
man.
if you were given that class in high school, how would that have changed your life? Right? To not say like, okay, cool, college is the next thing, right? Because I think this is the way that it's set up, especially like back in the day. I think it was either you go to college because that's what educated people do, or you work dead end jobs, right? But what if there was a course that was right in between there that will say, hey, here go some questions to help you figure out your purpose, right?
Yeah,
What are you passionate about? They don't. I don't know if they still do it anymore, but like I feel like field trips started to go like way down once you got into high school, like elementary school, middle school. You do a few things, but like high school, I'm like, that's the time where you need to do field trips. You know what I'm saying? It should be filled with them, right? At least once a
most.
month. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? You should be going on a field trip to experience different things. Because if we talk about the law of exposure, the only time you get exposure is if you decide to go to college. And
yeah,
then in college, right, you have to make sure that you're aware and take advantage of the different opportunities,
right.
right? So, like me and Cam, we did alternative spring breaks, great opportunities to learn more about the United States that we live in, right?
Mhm.
To see what other people are dealing with. That was cool, right? But man, I just think there's so much opportunity, and I hate to talk on that topic a lot about school because I don't know if I would ever want to go into being a teacher, but I think man, that's a course that we definitely could put together, man, in the future, and definitely present that to someone.
Right. Oh, I agree, man. I mean, I think there's tremendous amount of value in schooling and the education, system. I just think it's the way that we have it structured right now is a problem. It's
Yeah,
not the concept, it's just the way it's structured. And, you know, it, you already touched on a lot of the main things there, but yeah, man, I agree with you. Like there should be more options. There should be more, like you said, you took so many classes. I did too. I took so many classes that I knew had absolutely nothing to do with my major for one, and like it was just I just need to pass this class.
yeah,
Like that's what it boils down to. And I understand there's always an argument like that there's value to be added there, whether it's the networking, the connections, or the skills that you would find or have in that class. But man, like if I could replace that.
try and get these lights to come back.
It doesn't even look like they went out really.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
But can you imagine replacing those style of classes with something that's actually going to serve you and serve what you're already pursuing? Like, man, to me that just makes so much more sense. Like,
Yeah.
why in when you're talking about wasting time and money, I mean, money, yeah, that's a big thing, but time, I mean, time's way more valuable. You don't get that back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I will say this, y'all. I mean, we talking about this topic, but definitely shout out to the teachers that are doing their thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we definitely continue to need teachers, good teachers. And we're definitely big promoters on education. But I think we all have our opinions on how the education system could be different, how it can change, how it can, benefit us more, and that all comes from our different experiences. So
exactly.
B, so as Travis talked about some questions, right, to ask yourself to kind of, help figure out your purpose, man. And, the one that kind of stuck out to me the most, I think we went over about 2 or 3 of them, but the one that kind of stuck out to me the most was, what in life bothers you the most, right? And I love that question because I think, I know that we're all a solution to some issue, some problem, right? I think there is a downside to it though. And hear me out. This is kind of where I'm going with this. I think if you get too wrapped up into solving issues, right, or trying to figure out what issue you can solve, I think you try to solve too many, right? Everything can't bother you the same. I think there's certain things that have to bother you enough that you want to make a difference, right? Like I made the joke, right? If I have an issue with people not washing their hands, clearly I should make soap, right? Not necessarily. I have no interest in making any type of soap, right? But do you feel what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
No, I was just writing it down so I didn't forget. Because when you said that, all I could think about is if all you're doing is dealing with issues. I mean, all you're doing every day is you're dealing with problems, and if that's constantly what you're doing, and I feel like there has to be a flip side. Like, there's problems that need solved always, right? But what are you building? Are you constantly just solving problems, and are they draining? I think it all depends, but like, I see what you're trying to say though.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's just one of those things where, yes, we're a solution to a problem. You're a solution to people trying to find a home, right? I'm a solution to people that maybe either struggling with their leadership or new to leadership. I just think there's a lot of things that can irritate us and bother us because we're human beings, right? And so I think that's why going back to the gifts plus your passions equals your purpose. And I think you have to know your gifts, right? Because if you're not in your gift zone, right, you're gonna struggle. And if you're not truly passionate about it, right? Because I guess kind of where this came from, me and Cam were watching this one show. I can't remember the name of it, man. And this guy was like, he's a millionaire. I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's a millionaire. And pretty much he wanted to show people how to start things up from the ground up, right? And how to become a millionaire again all over. And one of the first things he said is, find what the people need and supply, right? Versus, and so it's the opposite of like the Simon Sinek thing, right? Start with why. And so it was like, I think that's kind of what made me think about this question. Like I said, I don't know if this is making sense, but it was just one of those things where it's like, if your mindset isn't right about your purpose and realizing that purpose isn't about money, but it's instead it's about impact, like Pastor Travis was saying,
right.
I think you can fall into the line of trying to solve too many issues. And then everything in the world becomes a problem that you can solve because you can try to make money off of it, but will you be fulfilled?
Right. I got you.
I think that's what I was trying to say. Like I said, it was a weird way how I got there. But like I said, I think that was just one of the things that kind of came to my mind. I'm just like, I feel like there's some danger with that question. Like it's a great question. I think everybody should ask themselves that question, but just be very careful on how you answer it. Don't get too in depth of, well, this is the issue, this is the issue. This bothers me too, this bothers me too. Because you get too wrapped up into trying to solve all these issues and never, fully fulfill your purpose.
Yeah, no, and I want to repeat that one more time too, because I think what you had just said there is so important. And there's actually a previous mentor of mine. He used to get the question all the time of, how do you find what you want to do? Kind of what we're talking about now. And his answer every time was, you look through your passions, go through your interests, but you want to find an industry or find a group of people that either have a problem or determine a problem, and you want to serve it. You want to either, offer a solution, or you want to add value to an industry in some way.
Yeah.
I was watching this video the other day, and it was like some guy started an e-commerce store based on like men's jewelry. He sold rings,
Okay.
and basically he enjoyed it. It's something that he wore before he sold them. He did it himself. He made them like out of spoons or something like that, or is out of silverware, which I know there's probably quite a few people out there that do that. But this guy made his own, and then he had some friends that were interested in it, so he made some for them, type of thing,
Yeah.
and then it just took off. He's like, so it might not be a great example because there's not like a clear problem, but he's identifying an industry. It's in the fashion niche, right? How can you add value to it? Oh, I can make these silverware rings. Okay, so now he built out the store. He was pursuing his passion. He did it before he even made money. He loved it,
Yeah.
So now he's servicing others and he's pursuing his passion. So, I mean, I think something like that, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think another one of the questions that Pastor Travis typically asks, and I don't know that we talked about it, and I'm not going to go over all of them because y'all need to check out cultivatemypurpose.com. But it was, what would you do if you know you didn't have to face the pain of your process, right? And the reason why I love that question is because it lets you know that your purpose has a process.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about processes, right? My thing at Planet, and even now at Smoothie King, is trust me or trust us as your leaders. Trust the process. You get to where you need to be, right?
Right.
But there's a process, and the process is different for every single person, right? And I'll be honest with you, I still struggle with that sometimes, knowing how much work I put in, knowing how much I grind day in and day out, and I see how some other people's process is like they living their best life now,
Right.
and had to possibly do a quarter of what I've done, right? It's hard,
Yeah.
right? But then realizing that, okay, cool, my process though, I might end up being in a better spot than them, or let's just forget about them overall. My process is just unique to me, right? My process is part of my story. My process is potentially what's going to go ahead and continue to help me continue to bring in an income.
Yeah.
The process is huge, man. I think people are scared of the process because, when you say, how do you get here, right? They just want to lay it out, right? What did John Maxwell say? And I think I mentioned this on Leadership 101, but he said, somebody asked him, I want to do what you do, right? And he said, okay, you want to do what I do, but do you want to do what I've done? Right? Do you want to go through the process?
Man, and one thing that I want to make sure that we mention is, and I really want to mention it because I dealt with this terribly, man, is comparison. And you mentioned it, you're like, forget about them. It's my journey, it's my process, it's unique to me. And man, like, for those listening that are struggling with that, whether it's self-doubt or you're comparing yourself to these people on Instagram, like, take those words and hold on to it, because it's not about them, it's about you. And your process and your journey looks different. I mean, I'll tell you right now, when I started my first e-commerce store, I thought it was going to be easy because I'm on Instagram here and I'm seeing all these 16-year-old entrepreneurs, you making e-commerce dropship stores, driving Lambos, making six figures in a month. And I'm like, what? Like, are you kidding me? They're 16 and I was like, I don't know, 19, 20 at the time. And I'm like, I'm behind. I'm behind. Like, what am I doing? Like, what did I do wrong in my life that I didn't do that at 16? and I start beating myself up and not appreciating the values and the things that I've done in between that time,
Yep.
maybe they don't have. Their process, their journey looks different. You're seeing the success, you're seeing the Instagram success, mind you, too, at that. But man, like, just look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. That's what you're comparing yourself against, is in every single day. I mean, if you guys haven't read it, David Goggins has a book, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
And like talking about self-discipline, and like, you are your biggest challenge every day. You have to choose to wake up and win. And that's the mentality you have to keep in business and in life.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love that. Hey, so I kind of want to, now we don't have to wrap up with this, but something that I know that I dealt with for a while, and it's even now I still deal with sometimes, is once you find your purpose and your passion, especially when it comes to your purpose, one, you have to cultivate it and develop it, right? And the main reason for that is, just because you have a gift doesn't mean it can't still be developed, right? And we get in trouble with that, because, like I said, when I figured out my value was I'm really good at adding value to people and connecting with people, I had to take a step back, right? Because you can get real excited and get real hyped off that and think like, okay, cool, I got this in the bag, right? And just how I was mentioning, how many times I say, right? I'm going to always continue to be authentically Aries, but it doesn't mean I can't take a speaking class. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't practice some of the things that I say beforehand, so I don't say so many right? Saying again, right? but you constantly have to develop it, right?
Right.
And I think on the other side of that, you wrote something down. So I want to stop real quick before I get into this next thing. You wrote something down. Say what you wrote down.
Oh man, when you first said that, I used to have a football recruiter in high school, and his slogan was "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work." And that's people that have gifts and have talents, and they don't pursue them and they don't cultivate them. The next guy is going to work harder. The next guy is, and I know that's more on like a competitive aspect, and maybe that's not always fitting for every situation. But if you're thinking like, for you, like if you were like, you know what, I have great communication skills, I can connect with people, I don't need to do anything.
Yep.
Well, there's going to be somebody else that's applying for that same job as you that worked their butt off to develop that skill, and they're going to beat you, because you didn't make the decision to cultivate that and to develop it. And there's so many analogies. We're talking about pouring from an empty cup. You constantly got to be developing and pouring into yourself, and that includes those passions and gifts.
Yeah. You mentioned constantly pouring into yourself. One thing, and I haven't done this, I heard somebody say this, but if you do struggle with pouring into yourself or remembering to invest in yourself, the one thing I want you to remember is you're constantly giving, right? Whether you're a giver or not, you're constantly, to a certain extent, you're constantly giving, because you're constantly talking or you're constantly giving information. Okay. So that's part of giving. But I heard a pastor say this one time, and he said he sets a cup of water on his desk, right? And it's a glass. And he said, eventually after a while, if I forget to pour water in it, what happens? The water starts to evaporate, right? And so when he has to pour water in it, it's a constant reminder that I have to constantly fill my cup.
Right.
And I love that analogy, because I'm just like, man, like, how often do we forget about ourselves? And I'm big on this, right? Because especially when you're focusing on adding values to others, right? You get really lost. And man, when's the last time I thought about me? And my wife, I love her so much, because she reminds me of this constantly, where I'm just like, all right, cool. It's your time to get out the house, do your thing or whatever. And she's like, okay, or you can get out the house for a second. And I see all the lights that went out.
I'm in here.
Okay. All right, there we go. Oh, these central lights, man. but it's just a constant reminder, man, of we have to take care of ourselves, right? You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others.
Absolutely. You know, with real estate, once you get your license, it's not like you've arrived. You know, every year you have requirements. You have to do a certain amount of education hours, continued education each year. And then
Yeah.
after the end of your 3-year cycle, you have to have X amount of credits in order to renew your license. You know, and that is kind of systematically put in a way to force you to continue to develop yourself because um, it's a forever changing industry too, and you're responsible to keep up with it. You know, it falls on you. And when you're serving your clients, you're serving, you know, these people, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're in the know. You
Yeah.
know, and thankfully they put it in there so it kind of forces you to. But you know, there's several industries out there that don't do that. You know, like I'll be honest with you, man. I spent $55 today on a course. I spent $55 today on a week long course that talks about personal branding, and it's like a daily challenge thing, and it gives you different tasks every day. And I'll tell you right now, I didn't want to spend the money at first. I didn't, you know, I'm looking at it, and there's so many courses and things like that out there. I know this one was reputable, you know, and it was good. You know, the content was going to be good, but still, like, there's that delay. And I'm like, what is stopping me from doing this? You know, like really thinking through it. Like, why am I not doing it? Is it the time? Am I saying like, oh, this whole week I have to take the time to actually pour into myself and actually be intentional to watch these hour-long videos and do it?
Yep.
Because really, that's what it's costing me. But it's worth it, you know, in the end, because I know it's going to develop me. I mean, not just for real estate, it's going to help this, it's going to help photography, everything. You know,
Yeah.
branding is huge. So, you know, just an example, but you know, take advantage of the situations. You know, it's so important.
Yeah. One, send me that course. Because I definitely didn't spend $55 on a course. I spent $55 on Chick-fil-A yesterday.
Man, I'm so hungry right now. I wish I
Yeah,
spent 55.
bro, there's a Chick-fil-A right across the street.
Mm.
Closes in a half hour. So
Oh, dude, yeah, we gotta wrap this up, man.
uh,
All right,
no,
so y'all, it's been
but no, man, I think the other part that I was gonna dive into after that though was just saying, don't let others have an opinion about your purpose.
right.
Okay. You had a purpose before anybody ever had an opinion about it. Right. And this was something that was big for me. And I'll tell you why. I've been teaching leadership content on and off now for maybe about past 5 or 6 years. Right. It is easy, in my opinion, easier, in my opinion, to teach it to a room full of Caucasian people. Okay.
Really?
That's just experience I've had. Right. But when I get around people that look like me, I automatically clam up. Right. Because I'll put it this way, there's very few Black people saying that, hey, I want to travel around the world, teach on leadership. Right. There's very few. Right. And so I had to be careful because my first thought process was, will my peers think this is cool? And if they don't think this is cool, is this really my purpose? Should I be doing this? Right. And I know somebody out there might be thinking like, man, that's crazy. I can guarantee you there's more of y'all out there that think about that than you think. Right. Don't let your peers or the people that might look like you, just because it's not something that is popular, right? Don't let that deter you from your purpose. And I had to be so careful with that, man, because and I misspoke. I shouldn't say necessarily I feel like it's easier. That's what I'm used to, right? A lot of the environments I've been in, teaching leadership, has been majority Caucasian, right? But when I get around people that look like me, I automatically try to change my lingo. I automatically try to change, and it's one thing to read the room. There's another thing to not authentically be you anymore, because now you're trying to impress people. Right. The impressing people shouldn't come from me changing. The impressing people should come from my content. And if you're not impressed with my content, that's cool. It ain't meant for you. Right. But I think, when we talk about purpose, you have to be so careful because one, put yourself around the right people, right? And you can still be friends with somebody and they think like, man, like what you do, I would never do, right? That's cool. That's your opinion. That, by all means, do your thing, right? But this is what I feel called to. With my gifts and with my passions, I believe this is my purpose. This is what I'm following. This is what I'm doing. I would appreciate the support, but if not, I'm still gonna chase it.
Yep.
Right? And we have to be okay with that. Yes, you do want the friends that are going to uplift you and motivate you. And man, I love that we have that in each other, right? But there's some people that look at us and they're like, bro, what y'all doing is whack. This podcast is whack, right? And that's cool. That's your opinion. Exactly. Right. But I just think, man, it's so crucial to constantly remind yourself that even though your purpose might not sound popular, even though it might not be popular in the community that you live in or the people that might look like you, don't let others' opinion of your purpose or let that mindset ruin the God-given purpose that he's given you.
Right. Absolutely. No, man, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's huge. I think more people need to hear that, and speaking from my experience, like if we have young listeners, I'll be honest with you, like when I was 16, 17 in high school, like I went to a small school, so saying I was popular, like that don't matter. But I can tell you that I wasn't doing what a lot of people in my age group were doing. A lot of weekend nights I was home, and I was pursuing things like this, and I was educating myself on things like this. One of my first jobs out of high school was I sold medical sales devices. I went cold calling. I walk into doctors' offices, my little briefcase that I saved up to get, and I was pitching to them on pharmacogenomics. Google it. Because I don't want to explain it. But
because I don't want to explain it.
No, man, but the point is it's like I used to beat myself up over it. For real. Because I'm like, man, like my friend group is smaller because of it. I don't connect with a lot of people because of it. I wouldn't say I necessarily got made fun of, but I'm sure if I was more vocal about it, I probably would have. It probably limited me in some ways. Whereas if I would have allowed myself to just be authentic and just to pursue these things because it's what I enjoy, and that's okay, and you don't need any other reason than that, whether it's cool or not. But my head wasn't there yet. I was still concerned about being cool, and I want people to like me and talk to me, whatever. And but the point is the skills and things that I developed in that time. In one of the first videos, I had mentioned that when I first went to Planet, a lot of the leadership development books and things that we did, I was already familiar with. And it was from that time period. It was from 16 to 18 that I read those books. It was from 16 to 18 that I had conversations with my dad about leadership and what it meant. It was from 16 to 18 that I was trying to pour in myself because I enjoyed it, and I saw the value in it. And I'm not saying everybody does. And if you don't, it's not lesser than, it's not that you're wrong in any way. But if you do, don't allow the opinions of others to stop you from pursuing it though either. So I think that's such a great topic to talk about.
Man, passion and purpose, bro.
Passion and purpose.
Passion and purpose, man.
Episode 5, baby.
Episode 5. And man, no, I would love though for you guys to interact a little bit with us. Please comment. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, Spotify, whether Instagram, message us, man. I mean, let us know what your purpose is. Let us know the things that you're passionate about, man, and let us know about your journey. Like I said, the whole purpose of this is for us to share our journey, have a good time, but to share our journey as well as we continue to figure out this thing called entrepreneurship and leadership.
That's right.
And man, we would love to hear from you all. But man, B, anything to wrap us up?
Man, like on that point, on that topic, one thing that Eris and I were going to be talking about here soon is kind of what's next for Ambitious Mindz and what are some different ideas that we have moving forward for this community. So just know there are some things in the works. When we say we want this to be a community, we mean that. We want to be providing value, but we want this to be a social place too, where people can interact and connect and network. and we'll be trying to do some things here coming soon. So keep an eye out on the social. Those of you that have been up on it, have been watching religiously. We appreciate you. It's awesome. But yeah, the interaction is great. And kind of gives us some direction on what do you guys want to hear. So yeah, man.
Hey, if you enjoy this and you like it, subscribe. All right, subscribe. Let us know. Share it with a friend. If you think anybody would enjoy this, share it with a friend. And guys, until next time, we'll see you. Peace.
Right on.
Right on, right on, right on.
Ambition is priceless. It's something that's in your veins. And I put that on my name. They gon' love me for my ambition.